think that's everything. Yeah, we're good. Hey everyone, my name is Stephen and welcome to Stephen Flores Travel. I hope y'all are having a great week and a great Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. So as you can probably tell by the title of this video, we are entering our first installment of my planning series. This video actually was supposed to have a bigger coverage, but then I realized that I could keep talking about this one thing for like 30 minutes, so I thought it's best to just split it up. And again, as you can tell by the title of this video, we're going to be talking about transportation. Specifically, one kind of transportation, which for me was shocking with how sometimes I could get it for super cheap. So yeah, if you want to find out how you can book flights for the incredibly cheap, then just keep watching this video. Now before we get to the video, I just want to say if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and comment down below. Also, don't forget to follow me on all my social media platforms. That is Stephen Flores for Facebook and at Stephen J Flores for Twitter and Instagram. And as always, if you like this video and want to see more videos like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell for me, will ya? So yeah, without further ado, let's move on with the video. So again, this video is just gonna cover one of the 3 possible kinds of transportation you can take in Europe. I decided to split it into 3 instead of having them all in one video because I realized, like, when I tried rehearsing this video, that I could talk about each one of these for like 30 minutes each, and I don't think an hour and a half of planning advice is something that people want to listen to. So I decided to chunk it up into little bits. And now we're gonna start with the first bit, which is probably gonna be the way, if you're not from Europe, it's gonna be the way that you enter Europe, and that's by flying. Europe basically just has 3 means of transportation. Well, 4 if you count taxis, but then I don't usually count taxis because they're really expensive unless you use BlaBlaCar. And I'm gonna get into BlaBlaCar in like the bus part of this video, but for now we're gonna stick with planes because like I said, there's only 3 ways to travel Europe. It's either planes, trains, or automobiles, or buses in this case. Now there are a lot of pros for traveling by plane. The first of which is that it can be really cheap. I'm gonna keep referencing this incident that happened to me when I was in Europe, but there's this one time I booked last minute tickets to Bologna in Italy from Paris, and they just cost me 30 euros round trip. Okay, 30 euros round trip. That's how cheap they were. Europe has a lot of low budget and cost friendly airlines, which I think you should utilize when you can. Whether that's Vueling from Spain or EasyJet and Ryanair in the UK or Transavia and all of that. As much as possible, go the low budget route because if you really look and dig and dig and dig, you might find some like nuggets of like really cheap airfare, which of course who would say no to saving money, right? Another pro of taking the plane is that it can be faster. Actually, most of the times it is actually faster. Even if your route is just from Paris to Brussels, if you take the plane, it'll be a lot faster than train or bus. And because it's a lot faster, another pro of taking the plane is that it saves so much time. I mean, if you can get from one place to another place in like an hour, then obviously that gives you more of your day to spend wandering around the city you're going to. Which is what happened to us when we went to Poland. We flew from Paris and we flew at like 7 a.m. So we got to Poland at like 9 in the morning, something like that. And we were able to basically save that day because we arrived so early, which means we had more time to go around Krakow because we were there earlier and we were there faster. Now that being said, there are a lot of cons also for taking the plane. The biggest one is hidden fees. Now remember the story I told you a while ago about the 30 euro flights? Now if I remember correctly, it originally said in the Ryanair app that the tickets were probably for like 5 or 10 euros or something like that. So obviously I was like, duh, I'm gonna take them. I mean, 5 euro, 10 euros for flights. I mean, who's not gonna take that? But then the thing is, these budget companies and all airline companies in general, they have like a ton of hidden fees. So your 10 euros becomes 20 euros, becomes 30 euros, becomes 50 euros, which is why you really gotta be careful. When you see the price on like an airline booking website, whether that's Skyscanner or any of that, and you think it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. For safety, add a couple extra like tens of euros and you're fine. Next, obviously, is that it is expensive during peak times. I know this probably goes for trains and buses too, but like of the 3 modes of transportation, the one that really gets expensive during peak times is planes. Now obviously you can solve this by going during off-peak times, but I know that's not an option for everybody. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Maybe bus or trains are more worth it because like planes really do get up there when they get up there. Lastly, one of the other cons of taking the plane is that it takes so long to get there and you have to do so much stuff before you can actually step on the plane. Meaning you gotta leave your hotel or hostel or wherever you're at like an hour hour before, and then it takes so long to get through immigration, to get through security or all of that. Then when you're finally through, you gotta wait to board, then you gotta wait the taxi, then the takeoff actually happens and you're delayed by an hour and all of that. Meanwhile, if you take the bus, you know, the bus kind of leaves on time in Europe based on my experience. So does the train. The train is the most, I think, at least from my experience again, it's the most on time of the three. And you get what you pay for. If it says 3 hours on the train, it'll really just take 3 hours. Just that there's a lot of this like stuff that happens, which could actually be counted as wasting time, I guess. Now you're probably wondering, in Europe, which are the countries that are good to travel to by plane? Well, there are a couple of them where I would say that plane is the best option. First being Greece, because Greece is kind of far from the rest of Europe, if you know what I mean. Like if this is Greece, this is everybody else. So really the only way to get to Athens is to fly, and the only way to get from Athens to the Greek Isles is to fly if you want to save time, and if you want it cheap, I think they have boat services, but they're incredibly slow. I mean, you can get to other parts of Greece by bus. Majority of the time when you're in Greece, I think you will be on a plane. Next up is the United Kingdom if you're coming from anywhere in mainland Europe, with the exception, I think, of France, because I took a bus from France to the UK once, and it was not that bad, I have to say. But yes, I would think logically the best thing to do would be to fly. If you're going from like England to Scotland, then I think you can use the train, but if you want to get to Northern Ireland, either you take the boat or the plane, and I would rather take the plane personally. Next up is Iceland, obviously because Iceland is so far out and all of that. Of course, you'd have to go there by plane. I don't think there's any boat service or cruises that go to Iceland. I could be wrong. If you know the answer to that, comment down below, but from my experience, I don't think there are. And finally, another good place to travel by plane is in Spain, especially if you're coming from anywhere else in Europe. Spain's kind of like Greece in the sense where it's kind of like secluded into its own peninsula. So if you want to get from Italy to Spain or Germany to Spain or the Benelux countries to Spain, you really rather fly. Unless you're coming from like the south of France, then I think it's better if you fly. Same goes, I guess, with going to Portugal, because Portugal is only busable or trainable if you're coming from Spain. If you're coming from anywhere else in Europe, you should just probably take the flight. So now you're probably wondering, how is the best way to book flights when it comes to booking flights for Europe? Well, my answer to that is my favorite website slash app, and that is Skyscanner. This is not sponsored by Skyscanner, by the way, but Skyscanner lets you like compare prices for different airlines. It tells you what the cheapest deals are, not just on the main airline's website, but on all of the trip booking sites everywhere. And there are a lot of options when it comes to Skyscanner. You can choose how many stops you want. If your dates are flexible, you can say, I want to travel during this month from this place to this place, and it'll give you the lowest fare for the entire month. And it's just really user-friendly and all of that. So here's what Skyscanner looks like. As you can see, I put Madrid to Barcelona as an example. And now if you look down here, it'll give you all the cheapest flights. So you can see here, Vueling.com for 40 euros, or another one for 46 euros. Air Europa for 50 euros, all of that, and it just gets more expensive as you go down. This is the site I personally use all the time. I know other people use other websites, but I find this the most reliable. But again, if you see a really good deal on Skyscanner, it doesn't hurt to go check the actual website, because sometimes Skyscanner is not 100% updated, so it could be showing old prices, so you just gotta be careful. Now I'm gonna give you some booking tips that I learned through my own research, and hopefully they can help you get the cheapest flights possible. First of all, I read somewhere that flights are cheapest from like Monday to Wednesday. I don't know if that's because people normally book on weekends, so the prices go up, but if you want the cheapest possible flights, then book from either a Monday to a Wednesday. Also, booking at least 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time will ensure that it's cheap. I think the 34 euro round trip tickets that I got were a fluke, but yeah, generally booking 2 to 3 weeks before for Europe is okay, and the prices at that point are still kind of cheap. I've never actually tried going to an airport and just asking them if they had tickets, so I don't really know how that would work or if it's cheap, but if anybody knows the answer to that, comment down below. I'm really interested to find out. Next up is baggage. As much as possible, try not to check in your bags, because that's gonna incur you additional fees. I think most airlines, like I know Ryanair and Vueling, allow you to have 2 bags and do one like small backpack or whatever, and one for like a roller bag or something like that. And the weight of both cannot exceed 7 kilograms. And if you're one of those people that wants to travel in the cheapest possible way, the best thing to do is keep your stuff like contained to that one roller bag or one like big-ish bag in like the small backpack or purse that you have. Also, there's this thing I read about that some airlines do, which I find a little bit sketchy. I'm not gonna name any airlines or all of that, but I was actually on an airline where they did this to like 10 or 20 people, and I was so shocked. But basically what they do is they scout your bag while you're waiting to board. So like you're at the boarding gate there with your bag, then they look at every single person's bag. If one bag seems too big to them to put in like the overhead compartment, they're gonna gonna take your bag without weighing it or checking the dimensions, and they're gonna force you to put it as a check-in bag. Then they're gonna charge you, I think, more than they would have initially charged you if you booked a check-in bag. Like, it's gonna be significantly more because they consider it last minute. So the airline gets an extra 20 to 30 euros. I found that so sketchy, and there was this one flight where I was so scared because like I had my bag with me, which was kind of big. So I put my jacket over it to make it look shorter, but they got like 10 or 20 people to check in their bag. So just be careful about that. Make sure it fits the dimensions, and when they actually ask you to do that, insist that they measure your bag first. Next up is the hidden fees. Like I said, there are some hidden fees you can't control, like administrative fees and taxes and all of that. But like there are some airlines that when you buy the ticket, they automatically put a lot of the options there for you. Like they put check-in bags, they put meals, they put seat selections. Always remember to take those out when you're booking because they can add as much as 50 to 100 euros to your ticket. If you get to the paying part of the whole process and you're like, why is my ticket more expensive than it should be? It's probably because they added a lot of stuff. So just go back and delete all of those and you'll be fine. Now, when it comes to deals, the best deal you can get is free cancellation, okay? Because if you have free cancellation, then that means if you find a cheaper price like 1 or 2 weeks later, you can book that, cancel the other one, and then you're good. Also, make it a priority to always check and recheck flight prices. I remember leading up to trips, I would check prices as early as a month before I was about to leave, and I would book it about like a week and a half or 2 weeks before I had to leave, just because I wanted to make sure that the price is at its lowest possible rate. And the only way you can know that is if you compare and contrast and all of that. Generally, if you book really early, it's gonna be expensive, but at around 1 to 2 months, it gets cheaper. And then as the weeks go by, it gets even cheaper. And then as you get really close to the date, it's gonna skyrocket up. So you gotta be sure and you gotta be careful about that. Next up is picking the right airport. I know that sounds a bit weird, but you know, there are some budget airlines that don't operate in the main airport of that city. For example, Paris. Ryanair doesn't work out of Charles de Gaulle or out of Orly. It works out of Beauvais. Now, Beauvais is this small town like an hour and a half north from Paris. So even though your flight ends up being cheaper, you gotta spend on transportation to get you from Paris all the way to Beauvais. Same goes for an airport in Brussels. If you're gonna fly to Brussels with Ryanair, they're probably gonna drop you off in Charleroi, which is I think an hour train ride away from Brussels. So you just gotta watch out for those kind of things. Because what's the use of getting a really cheap flight if you have to pay for like the transportation going from Paris to all the way over there, and that's gonna take up so much time too, because now you gotta leave earlier because you gotta leave your hostel or hotel to go to the train station, to go to the bus station, to go to the airport. So you gotta leave like 3-4 hours ahead, and that just wastes a lot of your day, especially if you're planning to just go to somewhere nearby. Like I just said, transportation to airports is also very important to note because sometimes it can be really cheap, like the RER going to Charles de Gaulle, if I remember correctly, was kind of cheap, and so were the buses going to Orly. But again, if you're coming from Beauvais, you may have to spend a little bit more money just to get there. Nobody wants to book a 20 euro round trip flight only to find out that the amount of transportation it takes to get from your hostel to the airport is gonna cost you 30 to 40 euros. So yeah, just be careful with that and weigh that in your decision making. So now you're probably wondering, what are the best budget airlines that I can use to go around Europe when this coronavirus thing is all finished? Well, for me, my 4 favorite airlines in Europe were Ryanair, EasyJet, Transavia, and Vueling. So the first one I'm gonna talk about is Ryanair. Ryanair is a UK-based budget airline, if I remember correctly. They're really cheap. Remember I was saying I got a 34 euro round trip flight? Yeah, that was on Ryanair. And as you can see here, they have a lot of coronavirus measures to make sure everyone is safe. So I think it's worth flying with them. Next up, we have EasyJet, another airline based in the UK. I took this when I went from, I think it was London all the way to Venice. This was the airline I used and I liked it. And they offer it really cheap too. Like, I think after Ryanair, this might be the cheapest one. Especially if you're living in the UK. You know, you can go to so many countries for the cheap because you have both Ryanair and EasyJet there with you. Next up is Transavia, as you can see here. They conveniently list their top destinations at the bottom, so you can see from Paris to get to Budapest, it's only 40 euros. To go to Prague, it's only 34 euros. To get to Nador, it's only 29 euros. So it's pretty affordable, I must say. And the last one, and the last budget airline worth noting is Vueling. Now, Vueling is a Spanish-based budget airline, so as you can see here, it says Barcelona as their origin because it's based in Spain. And as you can see here, their offers, they have as low as 8.99 euros or 6.99 euros for a flight. That is incredibly cheap. I think after Ryanair, this was the airline I took the most. I remember I used it to fly from Paris to Barcelona, from Paris to Madrid, from Madrid to Morocco. For the price, it's worth it. So now we're gonna talk about my personal experience flying in Europe. It's really easy to fly in Europe because there's no passport control unless you're going to the UK or Iceland or Croatia and stuff like that. Because as you know, there's a Schengen area in Europe which allows everybody to like kind of go wherever they want, which is great because like I said, it cuts the amount of time you need to be in the airport and all of that. I don't think I've had a bad experience flying anywhere in Europe. I probably went on about 20 to 25 flights my entire stay in Europe, and in all of them there was only one delay, and I don't know if that was because I was lucky, which I think I probably was lucky, but I only had one delay and it was only for 1 hour. The airline staff are generally friendly and all of that. Airports run really smoothly in Europe for the most part, although I heard some horror stories about the Greece airports, but I've never been to Greece, so I don't know anything to say about that. But yeah, I liked my experience. I think I liked it more than busing because, you know, like it just gets you there faster and sometimes it doesn't hurt the wallet that much. But that being said, I did take a lot more buses when I was in Europe. I think it was north of 50 probably, I would think. Now for some tips for budget airlines, get to the airport early. I remember that was our first mistake. We got to the airport 2 hours ahead for our flight from Paris Beauvais to Krakow, and there was such a long line to check in our bags because there was only one counter open, to the point where we only got them checked in about 30 minutes before our flight. So we were rushing through security because boarding was going to be in 10 minutes and we didn't want to be left by the plane. So yeah, just something to keep in mind when you go budget traveling to these places. You gotta get what you pay for, so just remember to come early. Next up, I know some people wonder why people line up to like board the plane. Like for example, my parents have the mentality that we're gonna get on the plane eventually, so why are we lining up when they announced that they're gonna board already? But I did that when I was in Europe because I wanted my bag to be right on top of me, and I noticed that the people who arrived last, they had to put their bags like at the back of the plane because that was the only space they had left, and I wanted like as soon as I landed, I would reach up, get my bag, and just get out of the plane. That's another tip I have for you guys. Line up when they say you're allowed to line up to board already, if that's important to you. And yeah, that's all the travel tips I have about flying in Europe for you guys. Have you guys ever been to Europe? Do you have any flying travel tips to share with people? I want to hear about them. Comment them down below. Hopefully I can learn something from you guys too. And yeah, I'll see you guys on Friday for our next video. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, click subscribe and like button down there. My last videos are to my left and to my right, and down in the description are my social media stuff. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Till next time guys, see ya.